So, really quick, if you haven't seen my most recent episode on Trazyn the Infinite, make sure you check that one out at some point, because my goodness is this commander broken. I mean, you can break this thing in probably a million or so ways, so make sure you check that episode out, but not before you stay tuned to this episode, because this card has me saying, oh my goodness. And of course, you know what to do. If I make any mistakes on this episode, blame Eddie in the comments below, even though Eddie just does a great job helping during spoiler season, but still blame Eddie! Anyways, let's jump into it. So first off, a big thank you to mtg.design for existing. You're a fantastic website, and yeah, this custom version of the card I made because the English version has not been revealed yet. So with that, I'm going off of the Reddit translation, which again has been very, very accurate in the past. So just keep that in mind. There might be a slight small change here or there with the wording, but basically those have been very accurate. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Regardless, Shard of the Nightbringer is a massive creature with a huge effect. An 8/8, please help me in the comments below. How do I say this part? Catan? Like, you know, the board game? I don't know. Catan? Let's just go with that. That costs 5, black, black, black. It has flying, so an 8/8 flyer for 8. I mean, that is a ton of mana, but for a very heavy hitter, and, yeah, the heavy hitting does not stop there. Here we go. Drain life. When Shard of the Nightbringer enters the battlefield, if you cast it, target opponent loses half their life, rounded up. You gain life equal to life lost this way. So that's a pretty big effect. Essentially, you know, drain someone for half of their life and say, oh, okay, well, that's very sad for you. Oh, I get this big benefit as well. Yeah, by taking your life, essentially, and just gaining it for myself. Oh, and on top of that, I've got an 8/8 in play. So, oh, and it's got flying. Have fun. Yeah, this thing is a real heavy hitter. A great, I wouldn't say, you know, finisher. I mean, it can definitely be a finisher after a certain point, right? It's an 8/8 flyer, but it is a great way to take a player down from no matter where they're at. You can take them halfway down. So again, if someone is at 40, you know, what you start off with in Commander, you take them down to 20. You gain that 20, putting you well ahead of your opponent. And again, it's not going to take very long for them to get taken out. I mean, at that point, it just takes, what, like 3, you know, attacks with this, you know, creature to take them out? And of course, I mean, this creature is most likely, I should say most likely, there are definitely some commanders that can get this out very quickly, but most likely this can be a later in the game creature. So again, if you've got your, you know, opponent down to, what, like 32, let's just say, as an example, take them down to 16, gain 16, and then it's a 2-shot KO on them. So yeah, this card has a lot of potential for decks that can actually cast it. Again, that is a massive cost. That being said, of course, there are some commanders out there that don't really care about that massive cost or have ways of getting around it, or, you know, just have ways to just ramp enough to actually get to the point where you're like, oh yeah, I'll just play this 8 mana creature. Oh, by the way, let's just drain someone for a ton. And actually, the fun does not stop there, though, because some of those decks very well might also have some of these next cards I'm going to talk about, which kind of combo with this in some very fun ways. So yeah, with that said, let's jump into those cards. First up, Wound Reflection. Yeah, I mean, what's worse than losing half your life? How about losing all of it? Wound Reflection is an enchantment that costs 5 and a black. It says, at the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to life they lost this turn. Again, Shard of the Nightbringer makes a player lose half their life rounded up. So no matter what their life total is at the end of the turn, it will then be, well, 0. Because let's say, again, a player is at, 40 life. All right, you take them down by 20. You gain 20 at the end of the turn. That player lost 20 life. So therefore, well, your life total then goes down to 0 because you lose another 20. And of course, the same could be said if they were at, 40 million life. It doesn't matter what the life total that player is at. If you, combo with this in Shard of the Nightbringer, that player is very gone, and you are very happy with your giant life boost. In a somewhat similar way, this also combos with Warlock class. Well, I should say the level 3 of Warlock class. Pay 6 and a black to get to that, after you've already paid 1 and a black to get to level 2. You know what I mean? Anyways, at the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to life they lost this turn. So this one only applies to your end step, but still, again, yeah, I mean, you're going to be casting the Shard of the Nightbringer on your turn. So yeah, that is also a one-shot KO essentially, or a delayed one-shot KO. But a true one-shot KO can really come with cards like Sanguine Bond and Defiant Bloodlord, and even Vizkopa Guildmage. We'll talk about that one here in a bit. But yeah, first up, Sanguine Bond is a fantastic card with this. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And Defiant Bloodlord is essentially the exact same thing, but it's on a 4/5 flyer with, again, that exact same effect. So yeah, I mean, this can be a very spicy way to take a player out. If you've got one of these in play, you just, cast your Shard of the Nightbringer, comes into play, you drain an opponent for half their life rounded up, you gain that amount, and yeah, again, let's just say, again, for example's sake, they're at 40 life. You drain 20. You gain 20. Cool. Sanguine Bond's like, hey, would you like to make target opponent lose 20 life? And you're like, yes, I would. And then you drain that player out for their remaining life total right away. Or, again, you don't even have to target that player. Let's say you're like, okay, that player is pretty dealt with. All right, I take their life total down a good amount. So, yeah, I can deal with them in other ways. Let's just, take out a different player, though. Again, if, let's say one of your opponents has at least twice as much as another opponent when it comes to life, you take that player down, again, 40 to 20. If another opponent only has 20 life, you can take them out instead. So you really hampered one of your opponents by, taking down their life total by half, and you took out another player all in one fell swoop. So yeah, a combo between these cards can be great. And speaking of great, well, if you've got the mana for it, Vizkopa Guildmage is incredible in combination with Shard of the Nightbringer. Vizkopa Guildmage, okay, first up has, pay 1 white black, target creature gains lifelink until end of turn. That's nice, giving your, Shard of the Nightbringer, lifelink. An 8/8 flyer with lifelink, that's lovely, but not the reason I'm bringing it up. Anyways, pay 1 white black whenever you gain life this turn. Each opponent loses that much life. So, same scenario, we are going to be draining an opponent from 40 down to 20, but we've activated Vizkopa Guildmage as well. So, now we're draining all of our opponents for 20 as well. So, that player, that we half their life total is gone, and the other players very well might be as well. Again, that is quite mana intensive, but there are definitely some decks that can pull that off. And real quick, of course, another card that works very well with Shard of the Nightbringer is Panharmonicon. It says, if an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a trigger to permanent of a ability or permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So instead of just getting one Shard of the Nightbringer, ETB, we are getting a second one. So we can either, basically take an opponent down, 50%, then 50% again. So 75% of their life total can be gone and we gain that. Or obviously we can take two opponents down by half their life total. So while this won't, one-shot an opponent with Shard of the Nightbringer, it will either take two opponents down quite a bit or one opponent really far down. But now that we've talked about some cards that work well with this, let's talk about some commanders that might want to consider it. And first up, well, okay, since I just brought up Panharmonicon, I'll bring up Yorick the Desecrated. Basically, Panharmonicon on a commander. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So yeah, let's double up that trigger. Again, drain for a ton, and Yorick decks out there can ramp absurdly quick. Again, just think about like a Springbloom Druid or again a Farhaven Elf, all those creatures that can enter and give you even more lands when they do. So yeah, you can ramp incredibly quickly. You can easily get up to the mana to cast it and double it up and drain your opponents very quickly and take over the game. Yeah, Yorick is a brutal commander. Speaking of brutal though, well, how about like a Sanguine Bond as a commander like Vito Thorn of the Duskrose? Vito has, whenever you gain a life, target opponent loses that much life, and by paying 3 black creature control gain lifelink until end of turn. So yeah, cool, just like Vizkopa Guildmage, you can give, your Shard of the Nightbringer lifelink, as well as all your other creatures, great. But the more important part is, again, yeah, whenever you gain life, you drain an opponent, so Shard of the Nightbringer essentially again can combo with this to just take out one player, or again, take one player really low and then also take out another depending on life totals. So yeah, if your Vito deck has the mana capacity for this fantastic creature, I'd recommend looking into it. But a commander that definitely has the mana capacity for it is Carrick, son of Yawgmoth, because Carrick is a ridiculous commander. And I'm still not sure if I'm saying that name right. Carrick? I can never remember. Anyways, for each black and a mana cost, you may pay 2 life rather than pay that mana. So basically, all of your black pips are going to be basically Phyrexian mana instead. So yeah, now instead of, Shard of the Nightbringer being an 8 mana spell, it's basically 5 mana plus 6 life. Which, of course, you know that 6 life is not that big of a deal, because when Shard comes into play, you can train an opponent for a ton and gain that life plus even more back very easily. So yeah, I can see, well, again, depends on what kind of a character deck you have. If you've got a combo one, probably not, but I mean, if you've got one that just wants big, disgusting things to happen, yeah, that can definitely be a good addition. And speaking of good additions, yeah, a big mana deck like Jodah that might focus on some big ETBs. Jodah will absolutely love this new card. You may pay Wooburg rather than pay the mana cost for spells that you cast. So again, that massive mana cost does not matter to Jodah. Jodah says, no, everything just costs 5. Well, you know what I mean. Everything that costs, less than 5 doesn't cost 5. But everything that costs more than 5 is just basically 5. So yeah, instead of paying 8 mana, you are only paying 5. You are still getting that ETB because you are still casting it, and you train an opponent for a ton. But speaking of big mana, how about Belby Corrupted Observer? It has, at the beginning of each player's post-combat main phase, that player adds colors for each of your opponents who lost life this turn. Belby can add an absurd amount of mana very, very quickly, and I mean, Belby decks literally can do this like turn 2, probably, where they could get this out if they really wanted to, and they had the right draw. Yeah, it's pretty gross. Essentially, though, yeah, if you've got a way for each of your opponents to easily lose 1 life, maybe that's in combat or whatnot, Belby is going to be giving you 6 mana, which is more than enough to pay for all that generic mana for the Shard of the Nightbringer, and then you just have to pay black, 3 mana in total for an 8/8 flyer that drains an opponent for half their life, and you gain that life. So yeah, I can definitely see Belby decks taking a look at this one. Speaking of which, how about Vilis Broker of Blood? Now, Vilis itself is a commander that costs a ton of mana, costing 5 black, so the exact same mana cost. Also an 8/8 flyer, so the exact same in that regard. But Vilis also has, well, okay, pay a black, pay 2 life, target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn, and on top of that, whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. Now, in a very weird way, it's unfortunate that you can't have Shard of the Nightbringer actually target yourself because it is target opponent, so you couldn't just, make yourself lose life and gain it back and draw a ton of cards with this. That being said, yeah, with Vilis, you have plenty of ways to lose a lot of life to draw a lot of cards, so gaining a ton of life back with Shard the Nightbringer could be a great thing. And again, since your commander costs so much to get out, you're going to have a ton of ways to ramp very quickly and very effectively, so you can cast a massive card like that one. But yeah, now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Shard of the Nightbringer. This thing is a very heavy hitter. Again, okay, 8/8 flyer for 8, but on top of that, that ETB is massive. That ETB can really turn around a game. It can put an opponent into a very tough situation while bolstering your life total and keeping you safe. And of course, it can combo with a variety of things to, well, take players out in pretty much one shot. So yeah, I can see a lot of players being excited about this one. And speaking of exciting, make sure you're checking out all my other quick takes during the spoiler season, and make sure you're looking out for even more quick takes in the future. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.